Okay, great. I'm so happy to have Laurel and Travis here tonight. They both are part of the Vroom project, which is a part of Envision Utah. This is part of the parent company from the Bezos Family Foundation. And why the Bezos family finds it interesting is because it's all about brain development. And what's cooler than that? So they are here to talk to us tonight, and they are parents themselves. Laurel has a teenage daughter, Madeline. She's 14, and Travis has two girls, one who is just 6 weeks old. So she is in good company with some of our mamas, and they are here to talk about what Envision Utah and Vroom is up to, and how parents can help with this brain development. And this is really a good time to talk about this, because I just had a question the other day from a mama who, after we covered all the things about nursing and, you know, how her body felt and everything like that. And then I said, do you have any other questions? And she said, yeah, like, what do I do with my baby? And so it was such a real, authentic question. And I was saying to Laurel yesterday that, you know, we're as mamas very high achieving, and having a brand new baby can be a little uncertain and a little nerve wracking, because we don't want to do anything wrong. So we always are looking for tools, and we're very appreciative of their time. And I'm going to turn it over to Travis and Laurel. So thank you guys so much for being here. It means a lot to the Hive Family Collective.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Sarah and Joanna. We appreciate your time, and it's good to be here. It's good to have you with us. So I'm going to share my screen here and showcase, some of what we've got going on. If you can see a cute, beautiful baby, just give me a thumbs up. This is my baby Madeline when she was just 7 months old. We went to a Disneyland trip. And then this is the rest of the family. This is new baby. We had to do in vitro. So this is all of our in vitro needles for baby number 2, similar pile of needles for baby number 1. So, real quick plug, if any mamas out there need help with anything along the infertility process and the infertility community, if you're wondering if you might be in the infertility community, I do some work sort of just serving along the side with a group called the Utah Infertility Resource Center. So if you want Sarah and Joanna, they can reach me offline, and I can get you in touch with some additional resources. But this is my wife and 2 babies, and they're my prides and joys. And yeah.
Travis, you are on not the big slideshow mode. I can see notes.
Oh, you can see my, hold on. How about this?
Let's see. Still there.
Okay, hold on. We'll stop sharing. Start over. We will start over, and we'll do that. How's that?
That's great. That's
okay.
Great. Okay. And this is my family. I just have one child, but this is her throughout kind of her different stages. And yes, she's 14, almost 15, and very excited to start driving soon, which is terrifying. So anyway, it's just so nice to be here tonight. Thank you so much. And it just has been wonderful learning about the Hive Collective and this group of parents coming together. I really, really appreciate that on a very human level. So glad that you are doing that and taking the time tonight with us. Travis, do you want me to start?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So we're with Envision Utah. It's a nonprofit located in Salt Lake City, and it's been around for 25 years. We're actually celebrating our 25th anniversary coming up next month. So that's really exciting. It started out as kind of a land use and surveying company, trying to make sure that how we grow matters. We are a growing population here, and we want to make sure that we do that in the most healthy and happy way possible. So that's who we are. One of the things you may or may not have heard about us is that we send out surveys here and there. The last one was, remind me, Travis.
Oh, we do them every year.
Oh, every year. So
yeah.
I don't know if this is from from.
This might not be the most recent one, but
That's okay,
the
but
same every year, pretty
what we
similar
do,
data.
yeah. So we ask Utahns to rank on a scale of 0 to 7 their priorities. You know, what is important to Utahns, and as you can see, these are the different options. And then with you know, water and education, air quality, healthcare, all of that. And as you can see, education rates pretty high. And then we also ask Utahns to rate how they think that we're doing with these different things. And you can see how education, while it is a really high priority, many Utahns don't believe that we are doing as well as maybe we could be doing with that. So that's one of the reasons why Envision Utah got into the education space, because it's a high priority. And as a state, you know, we, as a state and as a nonprofit organization, we focus on these different things that you can see on the screen. We you know, have our hand in pre-K stuff, making sure that, you know, there's decent options for preschools for children. We do a lot of, you know, advocating for and listening to what teachers need in order to do their jobs as best that they can, helping at-risk and disadvantaged children and their families. And then also Utahns care about education post high school, whether that's trade schools, community colleges, universities. But there's this gap, and the gap just happens to be in those years before pre-K, which is when so much of the brain is developing. And so as, you know, a team, we realize that this is a really crucial part of our young people in our state's lives. More than 92% of the brain growth occurs before kindergarten, before any of that formal education starts. So we really care about this at Envision Utah. And I know that a lot of parents that I talk to care a lot about this and worry a lot about this. So a lot of what we do is, you know, educating people on kind of brain development and what that means and how we can help as a community, how you can help as parents and as aunts and uncles and grandparents and all of that.
Yeah, so our story really kind of sort of localizes around Dr. Dana Suskind. We first sort of gravitated towards her when we were looking around for folks around the country who were already doing stuff in this space. We knew we wanted to do something, and we sort of were looking around for folks who were already got the ball rolling. And she kind of had discovered, rediscovered some interesting data around the 30 million words research done by a couple of researchers in the 90s that was really interesting. So she was a cochlear implant specialist, and she was noticing so let me go back a little bit. So she was noticing that when she was doing these cochlear implants, some kids were she would get them, you know, right away, right after the kid was born, right? And the kid would grow up and be pretty developmentally normal. And then for whatever reason, some kids, they you know, it'd be 18 months, 2 years in, even later sometimes, and before they got that cochlear implant, before they could hear normally. And they were having, you know, at subsequent appointments, she was noticing pretty significant developmental delays, and that caused her to sort of cast around for some research to figure out what's going on. And she found this research that tied sort of words spoken to children to socioeconomic status and to vocabulary. And she's realizing that there is a pretty profound word gap that ties to an achievement gap by the time kids get to formal education. And then subsequent research since then has really shown that it's tied to more than just vocabulary. Along with vocabulary comes language processing speed, our ability to learn new concepts, a whole host of different ideas around social and emotional learning, right? We want our kids to be like, you know, friendly and approachable by other friends, by the time they get to preschool and in elementary school. The concept of grit, right? Tenacity, math skills, focus, executive function skills, all encompassed in here. And it's something that really kind of can go back to these foundational principles behind vocabulary right around age 4 and before. And so that's why we're invested in this, is that the big takeaway here is that by talking to our kids, we can help them come away with better vocabularies. That's what the Hart and Risley data uncovered, is that by talking more to our kids, we can have those higher vocabularies regardless of where we're coming at socioeconomically. These socioeconomic bands here are pretty loose, depending on if you talked more to your kid, even if you came from this lower socioeconomic status, you can have this higher vocabulary. It's not tied to where you're from, what your background is. If you talk to your baby, your baby's going to have all of these benefits, pretty much regardless of where you're coming from. So we really like that as a nonprofit. We think that's a strong thing that we can do, that we can share with families. And so that kind of answers that question, right? That was brought up at the beginning. Like, what do I do now with my baby, right? The answer is, talk to your baby, right? So like to kind of answer that question, right? What does brain building look like? Laurel's going to kind of walk you through a little bit. What are some examples of what brain building can look like in kind of an everyday situation?
Yeah, I think that, when I tell somebody, like, I help educate people on brain building, they kind of give me this blank stare, like, okay, what does that even mean? But it's so important. And that's why we're in this realm. That's why we have an education department within Envision Utah. So as you can see, we have all said this command: put your shoes on, right? You're running out the door, your kid's right, lollygagging, as my grandma would say, and so you just kind of say a command. Well, that's 4 words. If we can expand that kind of command out to more of a, pleasant, nurturing experience of saying, can you please put your shoes on now so that we're ready to leave? Your grandma's excited to see you and I want to hurry out the door. That's so many more words to have the same action happen. And it's more of a connection type of a thing rather than just a command. But what we're asking is, let's even go a step further in that. The last example with the 46 words, it says, okay, you've got your shirt and your shorts on. What's the next thing that you need to put on in order to be ready to leave? I'll give you a hint. They go on your feet. What do you think you need to put on next? This is actually helping with cognitive reasoning and skills and everything like that. So you can see from the very top command to that bottom one, that's a huge difference in words in just one little interaction with your child that you're going to have no matter what. You're going to have that interaction. So we're asking you to stretch that conversation out. This is part of that spatial reasoning, which I like to point out kind of goes along with so many things, but in particular, I like to talk about math with this. If we use words like round or straight, flat or bumpy or pointed, fast, slow, heavy or light, small or big, when we use those words as part of the regular everyday vocabulary with our children, by the time they enter their formal education, whether that's in preschool or kindergarten or first grade, and their math teacher or their teacher is talking to them about like giving them some directions on their math assignment, they're going to know what that teacher is talking about. They're not going to have to try to interpret that, which then, sets that gap even further right away. So this is just one example of
okay,
how...
well, but Laurel, I'm kind of listening to you say this, and I'm kind of thinking now, like, as a new parent now, going like, do you really want me to like use all of these words,
Sure.
right, with my 5-week-old? I mean, is that really what we're asking? I mean, and the answer is kind of, yeah, right?
Yeah.
Do we want you to be like pointing at the light? Like, yeah, there's the light.
Yeah.
Yeah, there it is. Is it so bright?
And
Yes, it is.
I heard somebody say it's like narrating your child's childhood. I just heard that recently, and I think that that is a fairly decent description of kind of what we're asking. And it's not all the time. It's not 24 hours a day. It's not every time you see your child, you have to narrate every single little thing, but stretch some of those conversations that you're already having.
And when you say conversations, am I having a conversation
I
with my
love that Travis is
5-week-old?
doing this, by the way. Yes,
I know
you are
I'm throwing
having
you for a loop,
conversations.
Laurel.
No, this is amazing. You are having conversations with your baby,
Yeah.
with your toddler, with your 2-year-old and 3 and 4-year-old, and your 14-year-old, right? You're having conversations all along.
Her brain is still growing too. Is that what you're telling me?
Oh my goodness, so much. So it is important to have those conversations. Just because maybe the baby is not saying the words back to you does not mean that things are not happening up here in big, big ways. Those neural connections that are, when you're having one of those great connections, it's 1,000,000 neural connections a second. So if you think of that, that is literally mind-blowing. That's what's going on behind the scenes of these beautiful faces that we get to look at every day. So one of the things that we also like to talk about is baby talk versus parentese. Baby talk is that silly sounds and those made up words, those shoesy woozies, instead of using the real word of shoes. We've all probably done it. We would encourage people to use something called parentese instead of the baby talk. Parentese uses real words, correct grammar.
Let me give you some examples, right? Like
Travis is really good at this.
My sister-in-law, I love her to death. She will remain nameless, right? She like regurgitates the incorrect pronunciation from her 3-year-old, right? Oh, it's bed for bread, and wawa for water, and it's like, this is cute and it's darling, and we love it. And don't get me wrong, you should be interacting, but like, water is great. You should be saying water. Yeah, there's the water. Oh, how does that feel? That feels so good. Oh, does that taste? Yummy. That tastes so nice, right? I'm slowing down. I'm elongating my vowels, right? So I'm going up and down, right? Can you say hi? Hi, right?
And
Hi.
many of us do that so naturally. And then when you hear someone that doesn't do it naturally, it's kind of like, oh, they're not doing that. But I think in general, most of us, when a baby is in front of us, we do that inflection in voice, that higher pitch. And that's interesting. That's really interesting to babies' brains, so much more than, a monotone voice that we tend to talk more with other adults in.
Another noticing thing we like to talk about too is native language. Just a minor note here, but if folks who are worried or stressed or scared about coming into the English school system, be aware. We should definitely be talking to kids in their native language, in the parents' native language, to not have them be stressing or worrying overly about coming in with any English skills. It's not, they're going to pick up English just fine. They're not going to be behind on any tests or assessments that are going to set them behind in any real way. I've actually, talked at length about this with our preschool specialists, with our kindergarten specialists at USBE, that those assessments are not designed like that. And so rest assured, we have professionals in schools who are here to take care of our kids. And, we should be speaking to our kids in native language. We want our kids to be just bathed in that language that's going to richly prepare their minds for the future, for their friends, for life, for what's to come, right? So, and so that's kind of us in a nutshell. nutshell. But here's where you guys come in, moms. You guys are our brain builders. We want you guys to download the app. We'll talk about the Vroom app in just a second. But we want you to incorporate these brain building principles into your life, to go talk to your babies. You know, if you learn something new right now, just, you know, start talking to your baby using that motherese, that parentese. Babies just will glom onto that and watch your baby's eyes light up. Whenever your baby's eyes light up, Laurel, you mentioned it, right? Those synapses in the brain, they just start going like crazy. 1 million synapses per second in those few seconds that baby's eyes are lighting up. That's really, really great brain building. That proves to the brain that something important is happening, that you are an important person to that baby's life. And just so you guys are aware, just so you guys know, we are sharing this brain building research and knowledge with other organizations around in the community, with Intermountain Healthcare, folks up at the U, with folks in school districts around the state, different government organizations, KSL, different folks that we're working with, partners around the state to share brain building. And so you guys are now brain building ambassadors. So we want you guys to sort of spread the good news about brain building, and we want it to be sort of common knowledge, grandma's wisdom, right? When that baby is born, when that baby comes into your life, you can then give that good advice about breastfeeding or about diapering or about the car seat or whatever it is. And then also say, oh, and also, have you heard about brain building? We really would love that message to be shared. So Laurel can talk a little bit about Vroom, and then I'll pitch in as well.
Yeah, so Vroom is the app that we, partner with. It's free. So I always like to say that. We probably should have said that at the very, very beginning. But this is an example of what Vroom would look like. And P.S., it's non-commercial. So really easy to use, very positive and uplifting, which I appreciate. So you can see that you can attach it at the very top there. You can attach it to a child, or you can leave that blank. But if you have a child or a couple of children, you can add them in there. And it gives a tip. So this one, it's called in the real world. When you're out and about, point out things that you and Tiana have read about in books or seen in her favorite show. So it's giving you just these little splashes of ideas of what we did. And then, you can mark that you did it. You can heart, favorite so that you can remember that later. You can share it with a friend. So this is the app.
And they're based on the brain building science, right? The brain building basics. Vroom, back in 2014, they sort of brought together the latest and greatest scientists from around the country: Harvard, University of Washington, University of Minnesota, the brightest minds in the field of children's neuroscience. And they said, how can we distill what's going on right now and put it into the hands of parents right now? What is it going to look like? And what are those principles? And they basically came up with these 5 ideas. Look at what your kid's looking at and follow what they're doing, do it along with them, chat about what you guys are seeing and doing together, take turns going back and forth, doing an activity or talking back and forth, right? Having a conversational sort of ping pong, and then stretch that conversation or make that interaction last longer. These are sort of the brain building basics, things that will help that brain really grow and be prepared for friends, for the future, for life, for all the things that brain is going to be taking on later in life. So I'm going to show you the brain building tip that changed my life, and then Laura will show you hers. This one I read 4 years ago when I was first got on the job, and I had Madeline was just a 4-month-old, and it was about changing diapers. And it said, when you're changing your child's diapers, make a funny noise and see if you can make them giggle or coo. And I was just like, oh, I had, as a guy, I mean, I'm sorry, like, it's one of those things where it just didn't really come up. I was changing diapers in silence. And I know that maybe for you ladies, that might just be ridiculous, but for me, it was something that I just hadn't thought about. And so I immediately went home and just I never looked back. I just immediately was like, if I can make her giggle or laugh here, where else can I do it? Right. And so, car time became like a time where I was like, I'm changing it up. I'm going to make her giggle and laugh in the car. I'm going to make her giggle and laugh at dinner time. I'm going to make her giggle and laugh before bed, in the bath. Like, where else can I interact? Where else can I engage? And it was just sort of a paradigm shift for me. And so that was a really important one. And then here's yours, Laurel.
Yeah, so this is about, at the grocery store. And of course, 14 years ago when I had my new little baby, I didn't know about Vroom. But when I was going through all of the 1,000 tips that Vroom has, I came across this one, and it really reminded me of the times that I would take my daughter, Madeline, shopping with me. She was always my little shopping buddy. And even at such a little young age, I would narrate kind of our shopping experience. So, we were going down the aisles and we're talking about different things, similar to this tip, a parent saying, we're buying cereal to eat for breakfast this week, or we're buying green beans for dinner tomorrow. Hold up the item and talk to them. And I was talking to her in one of the aisles, and a woman came up to me and she said, she can't understand you, right? She can't talk back to you. And it struck me, even back then, luckily, that struck me as wrong. I knew that that was wrong, that she could at some, that this was helping her understand the world around her. And this, this back and forth interaction that I was having with my baby in the grocery store was an important time for us. And one thing that I love about Vroom is that also, so it tells you the tip up here at the top, but it also tells you the science behind it. And that's what they call the brainy background. So it's sometimes nice for me when I'm reading through these to go, oh yeah, there's a reason why we're doing this. And it's very scientific. So this one, when you describe what you're doing and why you're doing it, your child learns about the whys of their experiences. It also helps them understand you and their world better. This kind of understanding makes their experiences much richer. And you're adding a lot of language to their day. So just wanted to share that after the fact, I guess.
No, I think it totally
way
applies.
after the fact.
Totally
but
applies.
I still do that, even with with my 14-year-old. We're driving to school and we're still talking about all these things. So for some people it's more natural, for some people it's more of a learned skill. I would say that my husband probably had to learn this a little bit more than what innately came to me, and so he would have loved Vroom 14 years ago because it would have really got him thinking more in the terms of, okay, if I do this, then this is kind of what's happening behind this beautiful face and in the brain.
Yeah. So this is just a screen recording of me yesterday. I'm just kind of walking you through the app a little bit. This is, yesterday's tip for Madeline, right? I'm in Madeline's profile. I've got one for Madeline and Charlotte set up now. And you can see they've got some tip collections set up for Madeline. Let's say I've been having some trouble calming her down. So I'm going to click the Calm and Collect collection, and there's one. Let's click on the memory moments tip. I can read through that, and if I like it, I can click that favorite button up in the corner, and I can add it to my favorites. And I can check to see what other tips I favorited in that tab there, and then I can check on see her progress. I can see, we've done 54 tips in these, various categories. I can see her progress and go, looks like, creativity we need to work on. So I'm going to like add, creativity. Let me go see what we can do for doing some more creativity tips. And there's 25 tips for 4-year-olds in the creativity section. And I can see, looks like we haven't done a tip since July. Geez, I better get going. Right. And so it kind of helps me as a parent to go, okay, I can improve. And then I can click on Charlotte's, and then Charlotte's brand new baby. So of course, we've done one tip with Charlotte, woohoo! And so we can discover more, and you can see they're age appropriate, right? I can bounce the baby, right? That's baby Charlotte's tip, is I can bounce her, and then I can search through any tip, right? So I need a bath time tip for Charlotte. So I searched bath, and there are 8 bath tips for Charlotte that are available for a 0 to 1 year old. And so there's one of them, and I can read through that, and I can go through there. So it's a really, really robust app. We really like it. You can turn on notifications as well. You can have it notify you at different times of day. And then also too, I want to show you, you can text baby to 48258 and get access to text messages that way as well. And this is what the texts will kind of look like. They'll be age appropriate as well. You put in the age of your kid, and then you can put in I think a zip code or something, and then you're off to the races, and there you go. And then they'll just come once a week, really low stress, low bother. You can open it or not, and it's just, an easy part of your life. If you feel like opening them, great. If you don't, fine. And then you can kind of get access to Vroom tips that way as well. So it's a really, really great option if you're low tech, or you don't want to download the app. It's not too big of an app in terms of data space or storage or whatever, but just kind of some different options.
The other thing that I like, Travis, that you've said before, is this is something that you don't have to spend a lot of time on the app. After you've read through, 3 or 4 or 5 tips, you kind of start understanding like the concept of, these interactions based on, those 5 different things that we talked about, the look and take turns and all of that. You can kind of see how that plays into each of the tips. And then it starts, you thinking about some of these moments that you're having already with your babies in different ways. And then, if you're feeling uncreative, because I know as parents, we all have those times, probably most days, when you're like, I'm out of ideas. I have nothing. I can't think of a thing. I'm feeling very uncreative, but I know we're going to the park. I'm just going to type in park really quick and, see a couple of ideas of what we could do at the park to make brain building a part of that. And so I really love that part of it, that it doesn't have to be all, all encompassing and take up a ton of your time.
Yep, totally agree. It really is that simple. Super straightforward with the texting, or with the app you can download. Again, once you read through a few tips, you really kind of get the hang of it. If you want to download it, you can scan the QR code there, or just go to your favorite app store. Of course, more information, you can reach out to us, but this is kind of the Q&A portion. So I think it's okay for you, Sarah. I'm going to unshare and ask if there are any questions. Feel free to ask away.
Yeah, I have a question, and I thank you. It was I loved seeing it, and I'm with Laurel. With teenagers, it would be have been helpful. So, so my question is like, I love how non-commercial it is. I feel like babies are big businesses these days, and so that feels very authentic. What I also am unfamiliar with the landscape. Like, what's like a competitor to this, or what is someone use? I mean, someone's not using anything, but like, I just am curious if you bump up against another product that's quite similar, but maybe more commercial or different in some ways.
I think the biggest competitors in terms of like, in terms of real world, you're probably looking at like YouTube channels, like, I can't remember her name. She wears overalls, and I can't remember. She's got like there's the mommy bloggers are big in Utah, right? Like you're going to be competing with those folks who are a lot more pay to play. And so we've actually tried to reach out to several folks a couple of years ago, like saying, hey, like we'd love to promote this free resource if you let, and they'd be like, sorry, we're not going to do, you have to, and I was like,
that doesn't help my algorithm.
We're not in the mood. Yeah, we don't have, we're a nonprofit guy. We don't have money for that kind of thing. So, YouTube channels are in that space. And then I think in terms of other competitors, there's a service called Bright by Text. where local governments and then like healthcare providers, that's a business that's like reaches out to healthcare providers saying, hey, we will regurgitate some sort of PBS content and some already existing content that's good brain building material and give it to parents. If they text this code to a number, we'll hook them up with resources that are kind of local to their community. And that's kind of the closest thing that we've been able to find that you would call a competitor. But we love Bright by Text. We don't feel like we're sort of competing with those guys per se. But anyway, that's kind of it in terms of competitors. We love Vroom, but
did you see Ingrid's like, I'm downloading it, I gotta run.
That's great.
You're awesome.
We appreciate it, Ingrid.
I know. Tell the crew. Yeah, and I teach childbirth education, and I'm really focused on evidence-based information because there's so much out there. And who's writing the content? Like,
yeah. So I mean, if you want to, and we can totally dive into more of this, and this is on Vroom's website too.
Yeah. I mean,
Vroom.org.
like big picture.
Yeah.
I'm not
big picture. It's the Vroom Science Panel. And it's like 30 people, and we're talking Dr. Patricia Cool's on it. She's at the University of Washington. Phil Zalazzo, I think he's out of University of Minnesota.
Yeah, so real professionals that this is based in evidence, it's based in science.
Yeah.
These are best practices. I mean, I get that, but
so it's the panel that sort of has and they did the initial tip creation and vetting, and then there are new tips that are always kind of going through like a vetting process. So like just for example, in the last couple of months, in the last few months, year or two, they're vetting some tips that are trying to be more equitable and inclusive. They've done some that are sort of like checking to see like, will these work for like disabled populations or for all abilities? So they're always trying to go through just different quality checks and things like that, because there are over 1,000 tips. I mean, Laurel wasn't being facetious when she said over 1,000 tips.
I went through all of them, people. It took me a long time.
Someone did.
The tips that we have access to. Yeah. So they're always going through and releasing new ones and taking sort of older ones out of circulation that they need like a refresh or that they're feeling like aren't, as current, or aren't as scientifically appropriate anymore. They're always kind of making sure that they're up to snuff, if that makes sense.
That's one thing that I really like too, is that they're not afraid to admit when something needs updating. I think that that's a really neat thing about the Bezos Family Foundation and the different organizations that, they oversee as well. And we obviously want to be a part of that. So we want to stay up on all of the current research and all of that. Also, I meant to mention when Ingrid was on here, but Vroom comes in Spanish as well.
Oh, cool.
All of the materials are in Spanish and English. And then some of the things come in 19 languages. I think.
Are they up to 19 languages now?
I thought it was 19. Maybe 17.
Yeah, that would be great. Actually, if Joanna just had a call and a meeting last week with Holy Cross Ministries, which is here in town.
They're one of our partners.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we'll have to connect those dots. That's great. I love it. Joanna, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I've got a few. First of all, thank you so much for all that information. I love it. So first of all, with Vroom, what ages are you guys specifically targeting? Because yes, we still talk to our kids and narrate and all that stuff. And it seems like it's incredibly important when they are a little bit, not that it's more important when they're less verbal, but especially, before kindergarten. So do you have a certain age range that you are targeting with these tips?
Yeah, so the tips typically go from 0 to 5.
Okay.
But I mean, if you look at those 4 to 5-year-old tips, and you can continue to scale them up. But that's kind of where Vroom likes to target, is that space before kindergarten. And that's kind of where they focus.
And then maybe you know this already, and maybe it's integrated, but one really interesting news piece that we saw this a couple years ago. Our son, who's now 9, he was probably like 3, and I think it was on PBS NewsHour, but there were these 2 researchers who had a child together, and they decided to videotape themselves and learn about the learning of their child.
Oh,
And
wow.
they
Cool.
and they documented every single word they said for like a long time. I had the patience. But what they found, and you might know about this, and maybe it's
I
been
don't. You're gonna have
but-
to send me the link.
okay. It's really amazing. So what they found out was yes, expansive vocabulary is important, but if it's used in different places, so they videotape themselves in their house, so in different rooms. So it's like, oh, if you just use water, talk about water in the kitchen, it's not as good. You optimize learning if you use that word in multiple environments, which makes sense. I mean,
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
course, but I'd never really seen anybody document that
Yeah.
before.
Ah.
It's really fascinating.
That's cool.
So yeah, that was just a point that I thought was
Super cool. Yeah, Joanna, send me that info. I'd love to see that. That's really cool.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find that. I'll see if I can find that for sure.
That's really fascinating. I mean, it makes sense. I've
Totally.
never thought about it, but it totally makes sense.
Mhm.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll definitely look
Yeah.
into that.
And then are there tools that you guys recommend or partners that you have for beyond the 0 to 5 age group?
Laurel, there's a folks
Mhm.
that we recommend. I mean, we love libraries. I mean, if you are wanting of a tool, go to your local library, and they will be able to direct you to a whole host of other tools. But yeah, I would say start there, but I don't know if we have anybody specifically that we partner with.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not coming up with, like a specific, like after the 0 to 5 and your, Vroom kind of that targeted audience, then the next stage is this. I'm not coming up with anything like that. In my brain, I agree, like libraries are my favorite place in the whole world. So I would obviously send, there. And the neat thing with Envision Utah and our partners is we have partnerships all over, and it's really neat. Like when Travis was showing the slide of all the community, the parts of the community and stuff like that. We do partner with school districts. We do partner with, Intermountain Healthcare. We're trying to partner with some other pediatric offices and things like that. But yeah, the libraries, the museums, what we would love is that these are conversations going on kind of in every aspect,
Mhm.
either in micro or macro ways, right? And one thing, Sarah, that you had mentioned about childbirth classes, we would love to be able to talk to parents prenatally in that prenatal stage before the baby is here, because they're in a very good listening stage at that point, right? You're gathering tons of information, you're doing research, you're, ready to be in that really just that huge educational phase. And if going into the birth or the adoption or however that child is going to come into your life, that talking to that newborn really matters. Like, oh boy, we would love to be able to do that, and hopefully you can help spread the word on just those concepts, those basic concepts. So that doesn't answer your question at all, Joanna, but the whole point would be like, if we truly can be a community around brain building, and we can truly make sure that these are conversations happening in people's lives, then that maybe naturally can happen. Or if we've started out strong, then maybe those things are just part of the fabric of our lives. And then, hopefully the teachers will take over and the doctors will take over, and, that people are helping those families as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And I do think that, before mamas are sleep deprived, it's nice to talk to them. And my friend Mel just joined us too. So Mel, I'm so happy you're here. And she's probably nursing her little, and I just so appreciate like all the information. And I think what would be helpful, and this is true for when I teach too, is I'll follow up with you. And if you have like some, whether it's just a quick summary of what we talked about with the QR code or just the name of the app. But I really, I do find that like your message is quite simple and digestible. And so that's what we can do for our mamas is keep it simple, you know, but
absolutely.
useful and it's non-commercial, and I think the fact that, the Bezos are investing in it, and Envision Utah is investing in this. I think that really matters. So I think that those seem to be like some highlights, but I'm happy to help because I love to give my mamas, whether they're prenatal or post or, just some tools, right? That's what we need because it's overwhelming,
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just a very simple tool. And if it's like, look, do what you want with it, but it's a really easy, simple tool and it's in your tool bag, you know where to go to get it. And it's there and it's a baseline, right? Sometimes you might need a high level or triage tool. You might have a kid who needs a little bit more extra support, right? This is just your first step. Everybody needs, to be talked to. Everybody needs that level of engagement. And so this just helps with that. And so, we love all the extra tools out there that pediatricians offer and that teachers offer and that, the CDC and everything. But we just really love Vroom because it's so simple, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's really a great way to put it. Just like one more tool in the tool chest of parenthood, right? We all need it. Not every tool works on every day or even every minute, depending on the day, as we all know. So, and, Travis having just gone through, his wife's pregnancy and birth and postpartum, he's right in there with it. I've kind of forgotten some of that. It's been a while, but Travis is right there and he's shared with me some of the great things that have happened. The audiologist at the hospital talking about Vroom and talking to your baby, like that's really cool to be able to, hear it from different people too. So we hope that you can use it at some point. We hope you can spread the word. And Sarah, we have materials that I can bring up to you or ship to you, whichever, and we have, little like Vroom by text cards. We have bookmarks
or like a
QR
card.
codes.
Whatever's easier.
Hand them out. I love it. I love it. Yeah.
So we can definitely get you a stack and you can just give them out when it's appropriate.
Yeah. And I teach a lot virtually too. So we'll do. It's a hybrid world.
Yeah,
I love it.
Sure is.
I love it. Joanna, do you have other questions too? Anything else on your mind?
That was pretty much it. The only other one we were talking about brain building is I understand everybody's you don't have to stay in your lane, but I'm assuming that we understand a little bit more about the lane that you're in education wise, more verbal communication. But with brain building, do you do anything with nutrition or
obviously nutrition's the foundation, right? I mean, we really don't do anything without nutrition. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with 5 Before 5. It's a KSL initiative. So we power their website, 5before5kids.com. It's powered by Vroom tips. So we sort of provide a lot of the advice on the website, but really, they've added like nutrition as well. That's kind of been a prerogative of KSL, like, hey, we want this extra thing, because really, that's really where it starts and ends, is because you need that. And you can work in brain building into cooking good food and being healthy and, being active out in your community and stuff like that. So for sure, it really does go a long way. And we're doing some work with the LDS Church right now, with the Relief Society, former Relief Society president, who's now working with can't remember I can't remember the name of it, but it's just the big philanthropy arm of the church. And they're going to, be wanting to do stuff worldwide with, cognitive science and moving forward with how do we get people around the world to do sort of brain building. And it's like, but it starts with nutrition, right? So, I mean, you're right there, Joanna, you're right on the money. You have to have kids who are healthy. They have to have nutrition first. So.
Yeah. And I think, Travis and I kind of divide and conquer in many different ways. And we're on policy councils. We're in, meetings with lots of other folks from around the state. in many different arenas. So we are a part of those conversations. We're part of the childcare conversations that are going on right now, because there, are a lot of shortages. And it's very critical that people have good childcare. And, so we're kind of not all over the place, but we're intentionally in a lot.
We try and stay in a lot of lanes. Yeah.
We try to stay in a lot of lanes. We're in the conversation so that we know what's going on in the community, so that we can help support that in the ways that are appropriate for us to be in there. And then we're also in rooms where we just listen and learn. So, we're trying to just be a part of this beautiful community and make Utah better as we do grow. So, and I'm so glad that you've been able to have us here tonight. And I hope to learn more about what you're doing. I just subscribed to your newsletter, and so I can kind of, stay up to date on the ongoings up there in Summit County.
Yeah, I love it. I wish Vroom offered childcare, because that's the real
right?
golden ticket.
That's all you need, right? Then we'd all be good.
I really appreciate that. And I think when you're that involved at the state level, like, you have an understanding of what's happening. And I think there need to be voices, for these new parents, because it's really, the landscape has changed a lot in the last, couple of years, with so many families moving to Utah and Park City specifically. And it's, it's fantastic. Welcome to town. And, it's hard. So I'm hopeful that, that people like you are out there that, are not only parenting, working, but,
Yeah. Well, it's hard because people who are in my spot, they don't have their voice isn't heard as well because they're busy parenting. Right. So hopefully I can, be shouting a little bit louder. So yeah, it's tough, but we do what we can. Anyway, thank you guys so much for having us. We really appreciate you and, taking some time with us. And yeah.
I love it. Yeah, that sounds great. So I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great